Welcome, everybody, and thanks for joining again today to our bi-weekly session. My name is Vinky Loomba. I'm your host for today's meetup. I'm a founder and a CEO of Loomba Investment Group. I'm in the commercial real estate space with a special focus on multifamily investing. I love to help and educate people on real estate investing and passive income, or some call it mailbox money. I host educational webinars every other week on Fridays and bring some interesting topics on real estate multifamily investing and syndications with some great guests who are the SMEs or subject matter experts. I'm always seeking investor partners and love to build strong connections. So if you're not already connected, please feel free to reach out, connect via social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, follow me on Instagram. And I do have a podcast as well. It's a Why Mind, Body, and Entrepreneurship, where I bring some success stories. Tune into my podcast. I will put in my link in the chat during the meeting. And also feel free to go to my website, loombainvest.com, and download a free book, 7 Reasons Why Real Estate Syndications Build Long-Term Wealth. Before we get started, I would like to go through a small little disclaimer. Today's presentation is strictly for educational purposes and should not be considered as a legal, accounting, or investment advice. This presentation does not represent any offer to sell or a solicitation of an offer to purchase an investment or security. The strategies mentioned in the presentation may not be applicable for everyone. The information presented is believed to be accurate and reliable. We make no representations or warranties, expressed or implied, as to the accuracy of such information, and we explicitly disclaim any and all liability that may be based on such information and/or errors or omissions thereof. Please consult with your own attorney, financial advisor, CPA for legal matters, investments, or any specific tax situations. So this meetup or the webinar is strictly for educational purposes only. And now I'd like to introduce our special guest today. Our guest of honor is Dr. Jamil Sayegh. Dr. Jamil Sayegh is an international life, business, and relationship coach. He's an integrative naturopathic physician, master NLP practitioner, and author of 20 Steps to Your Next Breakthrough. He works with leaders and high performers from all walks of life, including world champion athletes, best-selling authors, entrepreneurs, business professionals, and more to create an extraordinary life without regret. Today's topic is achieving more with less. So Jamil is going to walk us through 10 principles, how to get the most out of you and get to your optimum level. So welcome, Jamil.
Thank you so much, Vinky. I appreciate you so much. And it's great to see some familiar faces in here. And I definitely want to start by just thanking you and Valerie and everyone else who's been a part of putting this together. And without you, none of us would be here. And so if we can all just take a moment, a round of applause for everyone who made today possible.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. And I know work goes into it, and sometimes it's easy not to feel appreciated. And so I want to make sure I pass that on to you. And thank you all for being here. You know, I know how valuable time is, and I know there's a lot of things you could be doing right now without being here. And I acknowledge that, I honor that, I respect that. And my intention is to make this as valuable as possible for everyone here. So I'm going to share my screen and just give me a thumbs up, please, if you can see this. Perfect. Okay. And I have a request, and most of you have already honored it without even knowing it. But if you're able to, please have your camera on. And if you can keep it on, it would really mean a lot. And there's a couple reasons for that. First and foremost, you will get more out of this when you are seen, when your presence is known, and you'll feel more present while you're in attendance. It's easier to kind of zone off when you're not really here. and when you're not seen. And second, it's a lot more fun to engage with all of your beautiful faces than it is to look at a name or a picture. And so I definitely would appreciate that. And so as I have here, 10 principles to get the most out of yourself and perform at the highest levels. As Vinky said, I've been blessed over the years to work with leaders and high performers from all different walks of life, many of them in the real estate space, whether they be investors, brokers, loan officers, agents, and then many people not in the real estate space. And it ultimately comes down to creating an extraordinary life without regret. And the thing that I've noticed is that all of these people who I consider to be leaders and high performers, first and foremost, they choose to be that. And what I mean by that is oftentimes we might think it's like you're born that way, when this is a moment-to-moment, day-by-day choice. Are you choosing to perform at a high level? Are you choosing to step into a leadership role? When I think of a leader, I think of a person who wants to make a positive difference, a positive impact for others. It's not just me, it's my family, it's my company, it's my community, and then depending on the size of the vision, it's my country or the world. And when I think of a high performer, somebody who wants to be and do the best they can at the things that matter most to them. And when I'm with people, I spend time with them, I find out what are their goals, what are their dreams, what are their problems and challenges. And then we dive deep in conversation and I find out how are they creating their world? What stories are they buying into? How do they see life that's generating all of their problems and how they hold themselves back? And I do what I can to free them of that so they can really fly and create the results that they want most. And so today I'm going to share with you tools, strategies, and ways of being that I share with my clients that I believe will help you get the most out of yourself. And I'm going to do my best to answer any questions that you have. So if any questions come up during the presentation, please put them in the chat. That's a great way so that we all can keep track of it. But if you'd rather just write it down so you remember it for later, that works too. And so we will dive in. So a couple of guidelines for today. In order to get the most from today, first and foremost, I'd highly recommend you take notes. Pen and paper, it increases your retention and your learning. If you want to take it even further, review it in the next day or two. It's a second pass at it, it'll be even more fresh. And then if you want to take it even more further, teach it to another person. Whenever you learn something with the intention of teaching it, you get so much more out of it. Number two is remain open-minded. Some things you'll hear today you've heard before, and some things you haven't. And be okay with that. Take what's useful and discard what's not. If you get one thing from today, it was worth it. Number three is play all out. Give 100% of you to this experience. Be here fully, be present. Give yourself the gift of not having your email open, chiming a million times, or your cell phone buzzing every 5 seconds. This 60 minutes or so that we're going to be together, I honestly know from experience, this can change your life. But if you don't give yourself that presence, it won't happen. I said earlier, I want to try to give as much as I can in terms of value, but I'm only half the equation. How you choose to show up today, how you choose to be in this space with all of us will create the results that you're going to experience. And if you're really here, you're going to receive what's here for you. One example I want to share with you, imagine being on an airplane and you're on the runway, you haven't taken off yet, and one of the flight attendants comes out. And how many of you have experienced when the flight attendant teaches you how to use a seatbelt? By a show of hands. And so in that moment, it's really easy to tune out. It's really easy to think, oh, I've heard this before. I know this. And so we're watching the TV maybe in front of us, or we're talking to someone, or we have our headphones in, and we're ignoring what they're saying. Because we assume, I don't really know how to use that life vest, but I'm not going to need it. Or I don't really know what to do in the case of an emergency, but what are the chances, right? But what would happen if the flight attendant came out in the middle of the flight and just said, we're going to crash. And if you pay attention to what I'm about to say in the next 30 seconds, it might save your life. Now, if that happened, how would you listen? Would you listen the same as if, your friend was talking to you and you were kind of just half listening to the flight attendant, half listening to your friend? Or would you stop everything and fully give this your attention because this is the rest of your life? And I'm sure we can all agree that we would focus, we paid attention. And in this situation right now, this is life or death, in the sense that this moment going forward, all your goals, all your dreams are dependent on how you show up in the world. And if you use this as a training ground to really focus, to really be present, to really get from this what's here for you, and then use it as a as a catapult a place to jump forward into your life, then that future you, that dream can continue. If any of you have seen like Back to the Future, there's a scene that always stands out to me. First movie, if you haven't seen it, Marty's the main character, goes back in time and he changes some things without realizing it. And he has a photo in his pocket of him and his family. And when he pulls it out, he disappears from the photo because he changed something in the past that messed up the future. Well, that future you, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, is looking in his pocket at a photo, and depending on what you decide to do now, he or she won't exist anymore or will continue to exist. And so there's this successful version of you that exists in the future. And my goal, and I'm sure yours is as well, is to realize being that person. And so again, listen from that space. Listen from the space of, this could really impact my life. And so before we dive in, just a little note, like, why am I here today? And for me, the purpose of today is I'd love to give you a powerful experience, something truly transformative that can touch your heart and soul and let you see kind of what it is that I do. I want to provide massive value to you, have fun with you all, and make this a great experience. There's no sales pitch. You know, I've been in conversations such as this where people spend 45 minutes, spend 60 minutes just trying to sell you something. And, you know, it's uncomfortable for me to hear that. I'm sure it's uncomfortable for you to hear that. And that's definitely not my intention. My intention is to give nothing but value. And at the end, if there's camaraderie, if there's, I'm interested in this guy, I'll give you a link. And if you want to talk, we can talk. You know, partnering with people to transform their life, make their dreams come true, and create more success, happiness, freedom, fulfillment. That's really what I live for. And if that's you, if it resonates, if you think, I like this guy, I want to talk to him, then let's do it. And if not, I hope today is everything you want it to be and you get something from it that can really move you forward. So let's dive forward, let's dive in. So 10 principles. Principle number 1, I call it perspective. And again, feel free to be taking notes throughout. I have here that life can change in an instant. I'm sure we've all experienced that, you know? On the one hand, that's the only way life changes, right? Moment to moment. But on the other hand, it can really change in an instant. You know, you have a tragedy, you have a big success, you have something that changes the whole way you see your life, paradigm shifting. I want to share with you a personal story of mine, and I'd like you to listen to it from the perspective how it relates to you. This isn't a story of just what happened to Jamil. This is a story that has elements of it that everyone can relate to. And if you take what's in here, lessons that I learned from this story, it really might turn things around for you in different areas of your life. And so when I was 19 years old, my dad had a brain aneurysm. And if you're not familiar with what that is, imagine a blood vessel in the brain. Think of it like a tube, and it starts to balloon out. And if you're fortunate, you have a really bad headache. You go to the hospital, you get it taken care of, and you're okay. If you're not as fortunate, like my dad, it ruptures. And he was in a 4-hour brain surgery, rushed him to the hospital, and we were told he's probably not going to make it, less than a 5% chance of surviving. Worst aneurysm the neurosurgeon said he ever saw. And if he did survive, very likely he'd never wake up. He'd be in a coma. And those 4 hours, as you can imagine, felt like forever. And I was 19, he was 49, and he survived the surgery. So already, you know, it was a miracle. Walk into the room after the surgery, and he was in a coma like the doctor said he would be, and he was in this hypercritical state where they said he could die at any moment. And in that moment, I had these two emotions. One was this sense of helplessness. Here was like my dad. Here was this guy that was like the epitome of what it meant to be a man for me. And it looked like a truck hit him. It looked like I couldn't do anything, you know, post-surgery. And the second thing was I had this immense sense of regret. The regret was I didn't have the kind of relationship that I could have had with my dad, that I took him for granted, that I deluded myself into believing that he would always be there, that, you know, he's 49, he'll be here till 80, 90, 100. I have time. And that was the story that I was buying into in my teenage years that many people do, whether they're teenagers or beyond. And I felt like I messed up. I felt like in that moment, I'm not going to have another chance. You know, sounds like he's going to die at any moment. And it was rough. And over the next 3 years, it was a roller coaster, but it was also the greatest blessing I could have imagined. And he survived another 3 years before he passed away. And in those 3 years, we helped him make almost a full recovery. And it was truly incredible. You know, he wasn't the same man that he was before, but the recovery was immense and it was truly amazing. Now, there were some high highs and there were some low lows. One of the lessons that I learned that I share with you today is just the miracle of this moment, the miracle of life, the miracle of a day. And what I mean by that is every day, 150,000 people don't wake up. Every single one of you on this call weren't one of those people. And if you're real fortunate, you've got some people in your life that you care about and they woke up too. That means that right from the get-go, you hit the lottery, you hit the jackpot. It's really easy to forget that. It's really easy to take that for granted and just assume that, oh yeah, waking up is a given. Like, I assume I'm going to wake up. But why would you assume that? There's a lot of people that assume that it didn't happen. And so when we can treasure, I'm alive right now. Am I doing something with that? Am I living, or am I just existing? Am I just going through the motions, not liking what I'm doing, not expressing my truth, not really living, or am I just existing, as I said? And so after that experience, let's get my thoughts together for a moment. Yeah, and so there were some high highs. Like, we played music together, we went to physical therapy together. I got to spend 10 to 15 hours a day with him most days. I took several years off after college to be one of his primary caregivers. And in those experiences, I got to get to know him in a way that I never had before. He became one of my best friends. And at the same time, there were some low moments. There were moments where he had short-term memory loss and he forgot who I was. There were moments where he was prone to seizures and he was having 2-minute, 3-minute, 5-minute seizures in my arms when nobody else was home and the phone is across the room and I didn't have any medical knowledge at the time and I wasn't sure what was going on. Is he dying right now in my arms? And I would go to bed every night wondering, is this the last time I'm going to see my dad? And I'd wake up in the morning. Was that all a dream? And there was this weird limbo state. I was bouncing back and forth. And every day I woke up and he was there. It was like, wow, I have another day. What a gift. I have another opportunity to be with this person, to really get to know them. And after the 3 years, my dad passed away. And I remember being at the wake and over 7,000 people showed up. And my dad was a family practice physician, and he was also one of the top 3 Elvis impersonators in the world. Music was one of his biggest passions, drumming, singing, just really, putting life into people on stage, but also in medicine. And almost everybody told me, your dad saved my life. I shook every single person's hand in those 5 hours. And I was just humbled by the impact that he had, people from different religions, different countries, different races, everything. And what they all had in common was they were loved by this man. And they loved him. A person who really cared for his fellow human being and put himself out there. But I also felt this sense of, I had been playing small, that I was afraid of rejection, that I cared way too much about what other people thought about me. And because of that, I was robbing the world of my light. I believe we all have this, let's say, divine spark that you are, that is in you, however you want to refer to it. And that is what makes you you. That is that uniqueness that no one else on the planet, and past, present, and future, can mimic that. And yet most of us walk around wearing a mask. And the mask is, who do I need to be for you to love me? Who do I need to be enough? Who do I need to be validated, to be normal, to be seen, to be accepted, whatever you want to call it. But that is holding you back from being you. So many people walk around in their daily life thinking, something seems off, something's not right, I don't get what it is, something's missing. And what's missing is you. You're missing from your life because you're pretending to be somebody else. You're pretending to be who you think you need to be versus who you really are. And being who you really are is you stepping into the role of being a lighthouse that shines for all to see, and those who want that come to you, versus you trying to force yourself into being something else. And that lesson hit home so much in that moment. And I reflected on it and I realized it's not worth it. Never again. 2 of my cousins passed away in those 3 years when I was taking care of my dad. One was 20 and one was 21. And if you were to ask either of them, they're both guys, if you said, what's your life look like in the next 30 years when they were 18? I promise you neither guy would say I'd be dead in the next 3 years. And so from that perspective, the Dalai Lama says most people live as if they're never going to die, and then they die having never really lived. And my wake-up call, my reminder, my loving plead, wake up, live your life. You got people in your life that care about you, that you care about, let them know. You have a dream on your heart that sometimes fear tries to run the show and hold you back from that. Don't listen. You got people, you've got a community you want to build, you have clients you want to serve, you have something you want to do. You got something handwritten on your soul for you to do. And oftentimes we ignore that. And whenever we ignore that, we suffer. Whenever we ignore that, we get hurt. And so your life can change in an instant isn't just in my case with my dad, like a quote unquote negative or bad situation. Your life can change in an instant right now by you saying enough is enough, by you saying no more, by you saying I'm sick and tired of playing small, by you saying I've got something to share with the world and I'm going to do that. And so that is a reminder I want to share with you. I find that perspective is one of, if not the most important of the 10 things I'm going to share with you today, because everything in life is filtered through that. And yet it's the most easily forgotten. When I speak to my clients, my friends, people I meet along my journey, what everybody wants at the end of the day, they want to be happy and they want to be fulfilled. And you get to decide what that means for you. You know, I often find people are living other people's version of their life versus living their life. And so you get clear, am I happy? Am I genuinely happy? Do I enjoy my life? And if the answer is yes, wonderful. How can you make it better if you want to? But if the answer is no, what can you do about that? And don't buy into the answer, nothing. Like there's always something you can do about it. There's help you can get, there's resources you can reach out to, there's friends you can call, there's something. You're not stuck, you're not alone, we're all in this together. And so just reminding yourself of that, your life can change in an instant. So slow down, be here now, check in, tune in. What do I want? Am I happy? What's my life been about up until this point? And do I want it to keep being like that? Or is it not serving me anymore, whatever I've been doing, and is it time for a change? So that's number one, perspective. Number two, I call mastering your day. So there are three aspects to this process. I've got two here and one on the next screen that I'm gonna share with you. And the first is something called time blocking. And this is just a way of organizing your day so you can get more from yourself than you otherwise would. So when it comes to time blocking, let's imagine everyone works a different amount of hours. Some people don't work every day, but just for the sake of this, let's imagine you worked 8 to 10 hours a day. Let's say 8. So you've got 8 hours, you have 8 blocks, 8 60-minute blocks. And what you do is you break up your 8 60-minute blocks and you break it up in such a way that you have 50 minutes, 50, of work for each 60-minute block. And then you have a 10-minute break, a real break, not, you know, I was just doing work on the computer and now I'm gonna check my email. Like you're gonna go outside, get some fresh air, you're gonna drink some water, you're gonna stretch, you're gonna move your body, you're gonna do something that completely gets your mind off of it. And then the first part is called genius work. And what I mean by that is we live in a very distracted world. We live in a world where you've got a million things going on that are pulling for your attention and you don't even realize how that kills your productivity. And I'll give you an example of it, but you set your intention. So you look at that first block and you say, what do I want to do in this block? You set your intention. By the end of this hour, I want this done. Whether it's mostly complete, completely complete, whatever it is, you set your intention. You eliminate distraction. If you don't need your phone, it's not in the room with you. If you don't need the internet, it's off. If you don't need your email, it's closed. You don't give yourself an opportunity to get distracted. You know, the amount of times we get pulled away from social media, from whatever the case may be, you can't multi-focus. So what ends up happening is every time you try to focus and then let's say the phone rings or the text and you look at it real quick and then you put it back down, you don't just put it down for a second and pick it back up exactly where you were. Your brain's now going to take about 10 to 20 minutes to get back to the level of focus you were at 30 seconds ago because you broke it. Now, what happens if you're focusing and then you get a text, and then you go back and then the email goes off and then you go back and then you're on social media? You never get back to what you were capable of doing. So if you combine these two, now I've got my 8 blocks, I've got my 10 blocks, I've got whatever it is. Now, one of those could be lunch, one of those could be a workout. It's up to you. But I set my intention at the beginning of the block. What do I want to get done today or in this block? I remove distractions and then I go to work completely focused for those 50 minutes. At the end of 50 minutes, you set a timer, alarm goes off, you stop, you take a minute or two and you reflect. How is my 50 minutes? How'd I do? Did I get it done? Is it complete and I can put it to the side? Do I need to schedule another block to finish it? Whatever the case may be, in a minute or two. And then you give yourself an 8 to 10 minute break. And then when you come back, you repeat that process. If you work this way, I promise you, you will get more done in one day than you usually do in 3, and you'll get more done probably than you do in a week, depending on how you normally work. But this way of working, I found to be phenomenal. And you might say, well, how do I know what to do when? And this is where this next part comes in. It's called an Eisenhower Matrix, and you might have been exposed to this before, and I've kind of made it my own a little bit. So 4 quadrants, please draw this out and you could follow it along with me. So you might think, all right, I have my time blocking, I have all these blocks. Well, how do I know what to put in there? And so there's 4 quadrants based on whatever your to-do list is. So you have your list. These are my 100 things I got to do, my 8 things I have to do, whatever the case may be. Might feel like 1,000, you know, whatever you have in there. The first block are things that are important and things that are urgent. And things that are important and things that are urgent, my recommendation is you do it and you do it now. It's the highest priority. Like nothing is more important than that. These are your like big rocks, you know, whatever you want, whatever metaphor you want to use from all like the personal development people. But the point being, important and urgent means you do it and you do it now. There's no reason to procrastinate on that. The second on the top right is important and not urgent. And what my recommendation would be is you schedule that. And think of it like this. If you're on a computer, which you all are, and let's say you've got 20 things minimized. Well, you're not looking at any of them, but the computer is using memory and it's using processing power to keep those open. So the computer is slower than it would have been otherwise. Well, your mind's the same way. And so now let's imagine that you go to the grocery store, we live together, and you ask me, you need anything? And I give you 100 things that I need, but I tell you, no list though. You have to just remember it. You have to memorize it. So now you have your 100 things. You're barely holding on. You got it, but like at any moment you might forget it. So you walk into the store and you got this, you're thinking about it. And then somebody walks up to you and they're a friend of yours and they say, oh, you know, Kevin, Sarah, Valerie. And they say, I have a new phone number. I want to give it to you. 912. And you're like, whoa, like I don't have my phone. I can't write it down. Like I'm barely holding on to the list of groceries. Like I'm not going to remember that number. You're going to mess me up because you had too many windows open. But the moment you have that list, you don't have to remember anything. You just remember the paper. It's easy. You have one thing open and that's all you got to do. So in that same way, when you say, well, I've got 5 things to do that are important and urgent, but I also have 10 things to do that are important and not urgent, and I'm just going to keep them all in my head today, that's going to slow you down. But if you say, you know what, today's Friday, and you know, this thing is important, but it's not due until next Thursday. So I'm going to schedule it for Tuesday at 2. It'll only take me 2 hours, and I'll be done with it Tuesday at 2. Now, what you've using the computer metaphor, you've closed the window for today on that thing. For all intents and purposes, for today, that is done. That task is complete because you've scheduled it. It will get done at that time, and you have plenty of time to do it. So that's the second side of it. The bottom left is not important and not urgent. And what that means is if you say it's not important, but it is urgent, it has to get done. If you have a team, this is where you use delegation. You know, you don't need to take everything on. If you have a team, you delegate it to somebody who can get it done so you can use your skill set, your zone of genius in the most productive way possible. You know, the most successful people aren't spending all of their days doing things that they're not that good at. They delegate out and they spend all of their time doing the things that they're great at. Now, obviously, we're all at different points in the journey. Sometimes you can't do that right from the get-go. So if you do have to do it yourself, you only do quadrant 3, the not important and urgent, when quadrant 1 is done. Quadrant 3 is second priority after quadrant 1 is done. And the last part is things that are not important and not urgent. My recommendation is eliminate them. Why are they in your life? If it's not important and it's not urgent, it's just taking up space. But if you would put something in there that you do want to get done, but you just don't call it important, that's last priority, right? So the reason why I found this to be such a valuable system, most people treat all 4 of these quadrants the same. So what ends up happening is you have a to-do list of 20 things, you don't separate it, and you end up getting 7 of them done, and you feel proud. I was busy, I did a lot today, but you didn't do any of the big things. You didn't do any of the things that mattered most. You didn't make meaningful progress towards your goal. You just did the busy work. But if you broke it up like this, those 20 things become, I've got 4 things that are important and urgent. Those are going to get done today. I've got 11 things that I scheduled for next week or, you know, throughout the following week. I've got 2 or 3 things that are not important and urgent that I'll do after my 3 or 4 most important. And then I've got 2 or 3 that I just got rid of. There's a lot of things we think we need to do that we don't actually need to do. And so just being aware of that. But again, this system is, it can be a real life changer. How many of you notice that if you don't have something like this, you might get a lot done, but not necessarily get a lot done, if you know what I mean, in terms of progress? I've seen some head nods, yeah. Number 3, I call this the magic formula for creating anything that you want. Sounds a little too good to be true, right? It works. You will see in a moment. So the magic formula is get committed. Sounds real easy. Sounds like, oh, that can't be that simple. Hear me out. You know, one of my mentors has a great quote where he says, "Failure to commit is the high cost of low living." And I want you to think about the difference between being committed and being interested. So, Sarah, if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself, if you would play with me, would you share with us, what do you think the difference is between committed and interested from your experience?
You are willing to do everything it takes. You have full funnel focus to get something done, versus even if it's not something you want to do, just to get to your goals and achieve what you want to achieve, versus you're interested in it because you like the whole part of it.
Yeah. It was perfect. And then how about the interested side?
The interested side?
Yeah, so if I told, yeah, I'm interested in this, you know, how's that different from being committed?
You don't know if you're actually, I mean, you don't have laser focus. You're not going to give it your all.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. And
Thank you.
You know, I think Sarah's spot on. When somebody says, I'm interested, at least to me, there's this like, that sounds good, you know, if it's easy and if it's comfortable and if I'm not too busy, I might do it. But I'm committed is I'm doing it, period. You know, I committed to that. It's not like I'll try. There's a do, like it's going to actually happen. So I want you to please take a note on this. I call this a difference in the language of commitment and the language of hesitation. So again, the language of commitment versus the language of hesitation. Hesitation language is maybe, I'll try, we'll see, if I'm lucky, hopefully. Notice that there's no commitment in any of those words. Maybe, I'll try, we'll see, hopefully. And the language of commitment is yes, absolutely. You can count on me. It's done. I'll take care of it. Now I want you to imagine, let me see, who's my next friend going? James, if you wouldn't mind, if we could have some fun together, if you could unmute yourself. Let's imagine you called me and you said, hey, Jamil, could you take me to the airport tomorrow morning? Right? I have a flight early. And I say, oh, what time? And you say 6:30. And I go, ooh, you know, James, maybe I'll see how I feel in the morning. And then we hang up. And then maybe a partner, a friend, someone's there with you and they say, is Jamil taking you to the airport? Well, what do you say?
I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea, right? Because based on whatever he just told me, I can't count on that. Thank you, man. Now let's imagine you ask me, hey, my flight's tomorrow morning, can you pick me up? And I say, you know, what time's your flight? And you say, oh, it's 6:30. And I'm like, how far away from you from the airport? Oh, 20 minutes. And I say, James, I'll be there at 5:45 or 5:30. I'll have some coffee. I'll have your favorite CD in there, and I'll get you there early. Does that feel different?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then now someone says, is Jamil taking you to the airport? And you go, oh yeah, it's done. It's taken care of.
No question. Yeah.
Right? Like I can count on that. Now, this is where you get to think to yourself, well, where am I living that in my life? You know, can my family count on my word? Can my team count on my word? You know, is there a commitment in my language when it comes to how I operate? Or do I operate from hesitation? You know, do I operate from a place of don't count on me, you know, I'll do it if I feel like it? Because that's not a great space to come from. And you'll see this from this next example. How many of you, by a show of hands, are married? Or in a committed relationship, either one? Okay, perfect. So I want you to imagine that there you are, you know, you're on the aisle or wherever you're getting married, and you say some really beautiful things to this person in front of you that you care so much about. And then you finish by saying, I do. And they look at you, maybe slightly concerned in their face, and they say, I'll try. And whenever I say that, just like right now, people smile, people laugh, people nod their head. And why? Because we all know that's not going to work. We all know that I'll try is going to be a recipe for failure when it comes to something like that. That commitment is required. There's this times are going to get hard. There's going to be moments where we don't see eye to eye. There's going to be all these things, but we're committed to figuring it out. And so from that space, just like marriage, I'll do it versus I'll try to do it. It's not going to happen. And so when you think about here, I said before, whatever you want, raising your level of commitment will get you there. So you might say, well, I want to have a better love life. I want to have better finances. I want to have a healthier body. I want to have lower body fat, more muscle mass. I want to have this weight. I want to have whatever the case, but I want to live in this neighborhood. Do you want it or are you committed to it? Because want is cool, but it's also, there's no commitment behind that. Because if you want it and I say, well, how long have you wanted that for? If you tell me anything more than a couple weeks, I wanted it for years. Well, okay, well, what have you done about it? What actions have you taken toward that? And so you tell me, you know, I want to make this much money. I want to have this level of success. I want to have this body weight. But if it's been 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years, and you're not really actively doing things towards that, it isn't going to happen. But it's because there's not a commitment to it. There's a desire, there's a want, but there isn't a commitment. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame, there's no guilt, there's no judgment. I'm just saying, get clear for yourself. What do I want at this stage of my life in all the different areas? And how can I raise my level of commitment? How can I go first instead of thinking the other person or life has to go first? Life responds to you. So when you go first, that makes the biggest difference. There's a fun little story here. You know, where can you throw your hat over the wall? So when JFK was a kid, he went to this private school and they had a uniform and there's a little hat and then a little, like, you know, suit kind of thing. And one day he would always walk back and forth from school to his house, and his friends would walk with him. And one day they're walking back and there's this giant wall, and they always tried to climb it, but they kind of called it the unclimbable wall. Like, everybody fails. Nobody, they get it like 60% up and then they always mess up and it's like, no one can do it. It's too hard. And one day his friend dares him to get over the wall. And the preface to this is his mom was very, like, kind of protective over the uniform and how he looked and everything, and said, you better not lose this, keep it clean. Like, you know, if you come back without it, you're in trouble, that kind of thing. And so his friend dares him to get over the wall, and he thinks about it. And he's probably not actively thinking about this in this way when he's a kid, but unconsciously maybe, I'm not going to get over that thing as I normally try because I've already tried that. So what he does is he takes his hat and he throws it over the wall. And now it's like, I have to get over that thing. My mom will kill me if I don't get over that wall. And then he did. Now, he still got to that part on the wall where it was hard. He still got to that part where he always quits and always gives up. But he didn't. He pushed through that, and that's where he got his breakthrough. And it's the same thing. If any of you saw the Batman movie, like The Dark Knight, the Christian Bale one, like the third one, I think. Maybe third one. But there's that scene where he's in this giant well that's probably like 1,000 feet deep, and he's trying to get out. And the way they do it is you can try to climb out and then make this big jump. But if you miss that jump, you're going to die. But that's the only way out. And all the prisoners are trying to make their way out. But in order to stay safe, they kind of wrap this rope around their waist. So if they miss the jump, they'll be able to just like not die and try again later. And everyone tries it. No one's able to make it. And only this one kid a long time ago made it out. And so Bruce Wayne, who's Batman, he's just sitting there in the prison. And the guy says to him, do you really want to get out of here? And he says, yeah. And he says, if you're going to do that, do it the way the child did it, without the rope. Because when you go without the rope, it's sink or swim. You go without the rope, there's no net. Like, you make it or you die. But when that happens, you don't hold back. When you have the rope, when you have the net, it's easy to think, well, I don't have to give it everything, because if I fall, I can always try again. But if you really put yourself in a position where I'm going to give this everything I have, I'm throwing my hat over the wall, I'm jumping without the rope, that's where some magic really happens. Yeah. Number 4 is, where are you creating from? And that'll make sense in a second. So I have a picture here of all of our good friend, Mr. Einstein. And he says, a problem can't be solved with the same level of thinking that created it. By a show of hands, who here has noticed that when you're frustrated, angry, depressed, fearful, sad, you aren't as resourceful or creative at finding results? Anyone notice that? Yeah. And why is that? It's because at the level of anger, fear, frustration, sadness, guilt, all that stuff, you're operating at the level of the problem. And at the level of the problem, you're never going to find the solution. And so then the question might be, well, what do I do then? And what you do is you keep yourself at a high emotional and energetic state to optimize your performance. And you might say, well, it sounds nice. How do I do that? And I love this radio metaphor. I came up with it a while ago and I found this picture online. And it's funny because at some point I know I had that as a actual navigation system radio. I don't know if any of you did as well. But think about this from a radio perspective. When you're listening to the radio, what station do you hear? And I don't mean specifically like 103.4. I mean, what do you hear? And the answer is you hear what you're tuned into, right? You hear the station you're tuned into. That's the only one you hear. Now, do all the other radio stations cease to exist because you're not tuned into them? No, they all exist at the exact same time. They're all simultaneously in the air, if you want to call it that. They're just flying past you, but you only notice what you're tuned into. Emotions work the same way. So my question might be, are you tuned into Misery FM or Gratitude FM? You tuned into Joy FM or Hatred FM, Envy, Jealousy FM? So now imagine there you are in this metaphorical highway of life and you're driving your car and you only know that there's one radio station. It's Misery FM. It came with the car and like, that's what you got. And you're just driving with it. You know all the songs. It makes you feel crappy. You hate it, but you do it anyway because it's better than silence maybe. And you're just listening. Somebody drives by you, windows down, they're laughing, they're having a good time, and you hear a song that you don't recognize. And you go, whoa, how come I haven't heard that? Like, where's that song? And you find out they're tuned to a different station. And you go, there's another station? And they're like, there's hundreds of them, let's say. And when you recognize that, where am I tuning my focus? What questions am I asking? So for example, what's wrong with me? Why does this always happen to me? Those aren't useful questions. Those are questions that are going to get you in trouble. Those are questions that are going to get you down this negative spiral and keep you stuck. But it's like, how could I use this to still get what I want anyway? What's the lesson here? What's the gift here? Questions like that sound so simple, but it shifts your focus. In this metaphor, it shifts the station that you're tuned into. And so when you can get clear, what am I tuned into? And what questions can I use to shift out of that? It's incredible what happens. And that leans into this next part. There's two ways you can see the world. You can see it first and foremost through the lens of deficiency. And when you see it from the lens of deficiency, you're looking at what's wrong. Let me go back. All right, I'll keep it. Through the lens of deficiency, what's wrong, what's missing, what's bad, what's broken, what's not working, what's not enough. And this is an example of all the questions that you might ask yourself. And you'll feel deficient. You'll feel not enough. You'll feel all the misery that life has. But what's bad is available, but what's good is always available also. So let's say now you look at the lens of appreciation. Well, what is working? What is great about my life? What am I grateful for? What challenges have I overcome? What lessons and gifts can this hardship maybe teach me? What's the opportunity here? And it's not just like, semantics or something like that. It's not a matter of which one's right. It's a matter of which way of thinking serves you. What's useful? What'll help you become the person that you want to be? It's not a matter of like the right and the wrong way. It's what's your way. What's the way that helps you get where you want to be? Because remember, you always find what you're looking for. Using the radio metaphor, you always hear what you're tuned to, and you won't hear anything else. That's why someone can be really happy and someone else is right next to them in the same situation, really upset, because they're looking at the situation differently. They're tuned into it differently. The lens, like the glasses from which they see their world, are different. So no matter what's happening around you, you always have the power to create an experience of life that's useful for you. And I call it reality creation. And it's what we're doing all the time, because life happens, you interpret it in a certain way, given your beliefs about yourself, about life, about the world, about your conditions, all these things. So life happens, you interpret it, and then you experience your interpretation. You don't experience life, you experience your interpretation of life. And so the challenge there becomes, what if your interpretation isn't correct? What if your interpretation isn't serving you? What if your interpretation is keeping you stuck? And that's when you can shift it to a new interpretation. Number 5 is there's 2 ways to create the future. You can create the future from the past, or you can create it from the future. And this is what I mean by that. If like that pole right in the middle, imagine that's the present, let's say. So you got the future and you have the past. This is what most people do. Here's my life right now. And then I look to the past and I say, okay, this is how it's always been up until this point. This is how I have been. This is what I've been capable of. I was good enough to do that. I was not good enough to do this. It's very fixed in its mindset. And because this is just the way that it is, like, I was never good with money. Relationships didn't work out. I can't lose weight. Like whatever the opposite. So what ends up happening is my tomorrow is not that different from my yesterday. And that's why there are some people, they kind of have a little bit of a hopeless kind of perspective when it comes to the future because they think nothing's going to change. But it goes back to life changes when you change. Nothing changes if nothing changes. So if you keep operating in the same way, yeah, you're going to have the same kind of life. But something that invite you that is more effective, you create the future from the future. You sit in your life right now, completely carefree of anything that happened before this moment. That's done. You stand in this moment, you close your eyes and you think about the future. Maybe you journal it and you go, what kind of life would I love to live? What kind of relationship would I love to have if I'm not in one? And if I am in one, how can I improve that? What would that look like 5 years from now, 5 months from now, 10 years from now, whatever the case may be? How much money do I want to make specifically? In my business, what kind of level of success do I want to reach? Like all the questions, and you get the crystal clear life and you see that version of you doing it and you watch him, you watch her. How are they doing that? How are they talking to people? How are they treating people? What routines do they have? And you watch it and you watch it and it's like a movie and you're going, wow, that's a real successful version of me. And then what you do is you recognize that you already are that version of you. You already are that. You're just in a smaller or earlier version of it. And so the only way to be that version of you is to be it now. Because you just visualized it, which means you know the recipe. You know how to do it. You know how she or you know how he would talk to people. You know how they would talk about risk and take risk. You know how they would not let fear stop them. All the things, how they would talk to their partner, what they would eat, what they wouldn't eat, how they would exercise. You already saw it in your visual, which means you know exactly what to do. You know exactly how to do it. So what if you saw that visual, you came back to the present, and that was your blueprint? Let me start acting that way right now. Because if you start treating people that way, acting that way right now, you will build that life. You will experience that life far sooner than you would otherwise. But also that's the only way to experience that life, because you're only gonna, a goal isn't a place to get to. It's a place to come from. Who do I need to be to make that happen? I need to be that version now and keep being that version. And that goal's fulfillment is inevitable. But if I think this is the version of me who can accomplish that goal, and this is me right now, and one day I'll become this me, as time goes by, this happens. And I just get further along and he gets further along. But if I say, this is the version of me I need to be, let me do what I can to be that now, then over time, I just grow into that version of me. Does that make sense? Yeah, got some head nods and some jaws dropped and good stuff. Number 6 is pressure. Is pressure your friend or is pressure your foe? Please write down: performance equals potential minus interference. Performance equals potential minus interference. Now, I believe that we have infinite potential. And then there are things that get in the way. There's who you're capable of being, you at your best, and then there's who you actually be on a day-to-day basis. And we have our moments. Some of us, we're operating at higher levels on a lot of days, and some of us, we're not. We all have lows and we all have our highs, so it's not a judgment, better or worse. But notice, if 10 out of 10 is the best you can be, most of the time we operate somewhere between 3 and 6, and then we justify it. But what would happen? And maybe you're at a 10 in your business, but you're at a 2 in your relationship. Or maybe you're at a 10 in your relationship, but you're at a 4 in your health. So it's not like 1 for all of it. But just get clear. Why is there a gap about what I'm capable of doing and what I actually do? Why not go all in? Why not be committed? Why not fully dive in? So to improve your performance, you want to limit interference. So then you might say, like, what do you mean by that? What's interference? There's a couple sources that I have found. The first is increased self-consciousness, meaning you're getting in your own way because you're thinking about yourself versus thinking about what you're doing. And I'll give you an example of this. When I was in medical school, I remember I gave a talk, and it was the first talk I gave to a large audience. And it was like first year in school, and it was like 200 people-ish, maybe a little bit more. And it was the night before, and I'm in my 700 square foot Arizona apartment with my IKEA futon right in front of me. And I just went over my speech. It was like a 10-minute thing. I just went over it 50 times. Like, I knew it. I could rehearse it. I mean, I could rehash it, no issue. And I said, you know what? I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to visualize all 200 people just like on my couch, like right in front of me. And I got it. I saw it. I felt it. I open my eyes. I start. I just said this thing 10, 20 times and no issue. Within 5 seconds, hands start sweating, heart starts pounding, forgot all the words. Now, why is that? I'm the only one in the room. Why is it that I just forgot the whole thing? And I knew it 10 seconds ago. And it's because the mind doesn't know the difference between what you imagine and what you actually experience. Because you only experience life from your senses and your thoughts. That's it. And so when the thought is, oh my God, there's 200 people staring at me, I hope I don't mess up. When the thought is, I hope I don't forget the words. When the thought is, oh, I'm screwed if this happens, I am now focused on me. I've got my spotlight of, let's say, love and attention on me, so I can't be serving you. I can't be with the crowd. I can't connect with the audience. And so A, the talk's gonna suck, and B, I'm gonna stress myself out like crazy. So it's a lose-lose for everybody. And so it's like, how am I getting in my own way? And I remember I sat with it and I kept doing it, and I kept looking at the couch and I started having fun with it. And if anyone saw me from the balcony, they probably thought I was crazy. I'm pointing to the wall, I'm yelling things out, I'm laughing. And I really was, I was pointing at people, asking them questions that didn't exist. But I had so much fun with it that at some point I did it again, no issue, saw all the people, standing ovation at the end, it was great. I go the next day, everyone else is speaking from behind a podium. I went into the middle of the whole crowd and I was just talking to everybody. And that was the first time I ever did it. And everyone walked up to me after saying, wow, that was amazing. Like, how many times have you done this? And it's just, well, I've never done it. And I've done it like 1,000 times in my head. The brain is a phenomenal thing. And I'm going to talk about that in a moment when it comes to mental rehearsal. But when it comes to how am I getting in my own way by focusing on me, not who I'm with. If you're on a date, you don't focus on you, focus on them. If you're with clients, you don't focus on you, you focus on them. If you're delivering a service, if you're with your family, whatever the case may be, put your focus on the other person. That helps to limit interference dramatically. The next one goes with what I just said. What stories are you telling yourself? Going back to the radio, what am I tuning into? If I'm tuning into, wow, if I mess up, I'm going to lose all my friends. If I tune into, if I mess this up, I'm never going to be able to speak again. If that's my story, it's not true, but if that's my story, I experience it as true. And that creates stress, that creates interference, and that drops performance. So again, where are you getting in your own way by buying into stories? Because instead of, what if I mess up? Well, I'm human. What if I make a mistake and I just roll with it and I have fun with it and I laugh it off? That's a possibility. What if they laugh at me? Well, I'll laugh too. What if one person has their life changed? That's worth it. You know, it's like however you want to word it, but tune into it. And again, increased pressure creates tension, and tension is always the enemy of high performance. Sometimes we're overly hard on ourselves, we're overly self-critical, overly judgmental. Excuse me. And it's not conducive to peak performance. You're beating yourself up just slows you down. So my recommendation, identify, where am I at right now? Where can I improve? And just make the necessary changes as best as you can. There's no reason to have the story about what it means about you. It doesn't mean anything about you. It just means that it didn't go the way you wanted it to. But you can improve that. The shame and the judgment and the guilt isn't necessary. But oftentimes we live unconsciously and we just do that. We put ourselves down. I also mentioned pressure could potentially be a friend. If it's a friend, that just means to me that if you're the kind of person that says, oh, I thrive under pressure. When I have pressure, when I'm in that kind of situation, the best of me comes out. And if I rise to the occasion at the last hour, beautiful, pressure works for you. But if it's creating tension, this is why. And these are some of the reasons why you get in your own way with that self-consciousness and the stories you tell yourself. And we can get out of it by putting our focus on the other and not telling ourselves the same stories that aren't true. Number 7 is what I was getting at with the mental rehearsal, performance necessity. So the first part is when you lose your motivation, you've lost connection to why you're doing whatever it is you're doing. If I were to ask you, why do you do what you do? If you've lost your drive, your ambition, your motivation, that zest, the passion, you'll probably be able to intellectualize why you do what you do. Like, you get it cerebrally, but the emotional connection, the heartfelt why, that part seems to go away if we're not reminding ourselves of it. So wherever you are on your journey, I definitely would recommend on a weekly basis, could be on a daily basis, take a few minutes, tune in. Who's counting on me? Why? And that'll come up in a second, actually. So to elevate your performance necessity, ask yourself, who's counting on me? How will their life improve when I succeed? Why do I, quote unquote, have to succeed? Let me go back. Why do I have to succeed? And just as a short little visual, imagine the people you care most about in this world. If you're comfortable closing your eyes, but it'll be more powerful for you, but you don't have to. But if you were to close your eyes and imagine the most loving people, like the people you love most in this world. It could be kids, it could be friends, it could be family, it could be a spouse, it could be whatever it is, but all the people that you care most about. And I want you to imagine how their life will improve. And just, it could be a video, it could be pictures, whatever you're seeing in your head. Imagine how their life will improve by you accomplishing all of the goals and dreams that you have. See how you would contribute to them, how you could serve them, what you could do for them, what you could do together. And allow maybe a bunch of little images, a bunch of little movies to play in your head. Maybe it's dreams that you have together, bucket list stuff, whatever you want to call it. And like, feel that. And it's just like, it's like, wow, that's nice. That's beautiful. Like, I'd love that. And then pause that and then allow like the slate to clean. And now it's just like white, let's say. And now imagine a different life, a life where you lived from fear, where you gave up early. I don't mind people quitting. Quitting's a good thing if you're quitting at something you don't want to do anymore. But quitting at something you do want to do because you're afraid, that's a decision and a choice that you would deal with for the rest of your life. And so in this visual, imagine, there's my loved ones, and now all the things I can't do for them, the ways I can't contribute to them. And there's likely some pain, some uncomfortability with that. And that's a good thing. It shows how much you care. And now imagine, if you clean the slate again, being at a fork in the road. And on the left and the right, there's like a giant IMAX screen on each side. It's been a while since I've been to the movies, but it's like a giant IMAX screen on each side. And on the left side, that's that beautiful life. That's that life when you contributed to the people that mattered most to you. Your goals and dreams came true. You lived a life of commitment. You honored your word. You were moving in integrity with yourself and others. And you see that life and you go, wow, like there it is. I can choose that. And then you look on the right side, and that movie is what's playing. That's the life that you probably don't want. That's the life when you don't do what you want to do. That's the life when you played small, when you let fear run the show, and you see the people that you love not getting what they could have gotten from you. And now at this fork, every single time you feel maybe some hesitation, maybe a lack of motivation, imagine this moment and choose a road. Look at both sides and go, which road will what I'm about to do, whether it's slack off or commit or whatever the case may be, where will that take me? And if it's going to take me on that road that I don't want to be on, is that okay? And if the answer is yes, then by all means, you do you. But if the answer is no, and you want to go on that other road, that'll get you motivated again. And so feel free to open your eyes if they're still closed. That was just a short little exercise. It can be really useful in the moment. As we kind of near the end, number 8 I have here is the cure for overwhelm. I want you to think, how am I spending my energy? Very often, the version of us on the left, that's who we show up as. I've got 10 different things that I'm doing. I'm spreading myself real thin. And let's say I need 100 points of energy in a day. Well, each of those you give 10 points. So you think I'm doing a lot. The challenge is you're spread so thin that you get frustrated, you get burned out, and you don't actually create fantastic results. But you're frustrated because you think I'm doing so much, why is it not working? Versus you on the right, where you go all in on one thing. And now you have 100 points in one thing. It is far more effective and efficient to do one thing at a time 10 times than to try to do 10 things at once. Because multi-focusing is a myth. When it comes to multitasking, yeah, you could walk and have a conversation, but you can't do brain surgery and have a conversation in Chinese when you're learning it. That's not going to work. You need your full focus for that. So multi-focus doesn't work. And I just told you before, I think number 3, I think it was, when it came to the genius work and the time blocking, every time you shift your focus, you lose productivity. And it takes time to get it back. So how much time do you waste by trying to do too many things at once? And something to keep in mind, think of on the right, that's you doing one thing at a time like a laser. You take all of your energy and you hone it in. A laser can start a fire. A light bulb, unless it's like, in extreme circumstances, it's not going to. A light bulb will disperse its light. And that's great. It'll light the place up, but it's not going to get the job done. How can you laser your energy, laser your focus and attention? Because the cure for overwhelm is one thing at a time. You only ever have one thing to do, and it's the thing right in front of you. It's the next thing. That's all you ever have to do. But most of us get in our own way because we're thinking about what we're going to do now. And then while we're doing that, we're thinking about 10 things down the line, not realizing that that is sabotaging us. It's slowing us down. We're going to make more mistakes. What if you just did one thing at a time? If you just did that, stress, overwhelm, they diminish greatly, or they even just go away. Oftentimes I find my clients ask me, what can I do? Like, what can I start adding to my life? And before we think about adding, what can you subtract from your life? What no longer belongs in your life? What doesn't serve you anymore? There are situations, there are people, there are experiences, there are objects, there are things that are not clouding? Clouding might be the word, yeah, but like they're clouding up your life. It's foggy, it's like you don't have a clear life because you got so many things there that don't belong there anymore. Maybe they served you in the past, but they don't serve you right now. And they're not serving the version of you that you're stepping into. And so get clear for yourself, what can I subtract to make room for what it is that I want? Number 9 is focus on today. This is a picture of one of my clients. His name is Steve, great dude. And he's the American Taekwondo world champion for a few years running. And he has a beautiful dream of his retirement, just like many of you might. I'm going to share with you aspects of his dream, but again, think about your own throughout this process. Steve wants to live on a gorgeous island, and he wants to own a vacation home in the west coast of the US. He wants to have a fun and adventure-filled career that he can start that will add a lot of joy to his experience of life. And he wants a passionate and loving relationship with his wife. And whatever your version of that is, the key is it won't happen overnight. So committing to today and focusing on winning the day, I think of it as the difference between the micro and the macro. A lot of people focus on the macro and they get overwhelmed because it feels so far away. It's like, I'm not there yet. I'm nowhere close. And so they kind of judge themselves as I should be there. I should be further than I am. And that's a story. It's a radio they're tuning into, right? And that creates that experience of stress and suffering and, uncomfortability. But what if you said, I am where I'm at right now. And what's the 1, 2, or 3 most important things I can do today to move me forward? If you just did that, 6 months from now, a year from now, your life would be completely different. It'd be really incredible. Just like with finances, compound interest, it's like day by day, it doesn't seem like much is happening, but over time, it's spectacular what happens. Same kind of thing. How can you be 1% better today? How can you do 1% more closer to where you want to be? It's like, that is what makes the difference. It's that power of consistency. Do I show up every single day committed? And a commitment's not something you make once. It's something you recommit to every day. And that's where the power comes in of a commitment. And finally, number 10, I call it the fundamentals. And this is where like the doctor hat comes on. I find that so many of my clients, even if they work with me for business or relationship or, mental, emotional kind of reasons, the health is obviously, this is like, your body, your vessel, whatever you call it. If this isn't healthy, if you've got the brain fog and the fatigue and you're not sleeping well, that's going to mess up your success. It's going to hold you back from being as successful as you could. So a couple general fundamentals that I have found a lot of people don't do that you can incorporate into your life that will make a big difference. Every day, commit to the basics. Number 1, stay hydrated. Outside of like a kidney condition, you drink half your body weight in water in ounces. If you're sweating a lot, if it's really hot, as Kevin goes for the sip, awesome, man. But you drink half your body weight in ounces. If you're sweating a lot, maybe throw some electrolytes in there. Again, not medical advice. If you have kidney conditions, any kind of questions, run it by your healthcare practitioner. But secondly, sleep. There's people going, I don't need sleep, or I can do it on 4 hours. I can do it on 6 hours. You think you can. But the reality is that 7 to 9 hours, the research shows, everyone's different, but 7 hours, 20 minutes is kind of that average, but 7 to 9, That's where the magic is for you. And the thing is, if and aim to go to sleep and wake up around the same time every day. The evidence is clear that when you're dehydrated and you're underslept, each one separately, but now imagine together, you operate at a level that's equivalent to being functionally drunk. So are you running your business as if you're drunk? Are you being with your loved ones as if you're drunk? You know, are you exercising as if you're drunk? It's like you're holding yourself back in that way. And James going for the sip. Awesome. And so next we've got nutrition. You know, there's no one way to eat. Keep that in mind. But in general, eat real food, mostly plants, not too much. It's a great little quote that a colleague of mine came up with that in general, it hits the nail on the head. There is no one way to eat. Everyone's different. But in general, if you eat real food, meaning real food doesn't have ingredients because real food is ingredients, right? So it's like you eat real food. You get some good veggies. You don't overeat. If you like meat, you get some good quality meats and good quality fats. Listen to your body. There's certain foods that you eat, certain drinks that you drink, and you don't feel good after you do that. You get bloated, you get gassy, you get brain fog, you get headaches, but you keep eating it. And so the question becomes that your body's saying, hey, this doesn't work for us. I don't like this. I've had people give up foods that they've eaten their whole life because that's what's causing the problem, and all their issues went away. And it's pretty incredible what can happen. You know, ideally, don't drink your sugar, whether it's soda or juice. Avoiding that, avoiding ultra-processed foods. If you can't pronounce the ingredient, probably a good idea not to eat it. And avoid vegetable oils. You know, you go to buy something, you look at the ingredient list, the first thing says soybean oil or canola oil. You don't want to eat that. And the last one is stop eating, 3 to 4 hours before sleep, if possible. That'll help you get a deeper sleep. Next is just movement. Increase your movement throughout the day. People say sitting is the new smoking kind of thing. Move throughout the day. You want to put some muscle on, which is great for everybody. Do some resistance training. You want to go to the gym? Do that. You want to be home? Do some push-ups, do some squats. Like, you can start with where you are with what you have, always. Walk. Walking's amazing. Stretch. Being older, I remember hearing Denzel Washington say, we can't help getting older, but we don't have to get old. If being 90 isn't the reason why you stand like this, it's being a whole lifetime of not stretching, not taking care of yourself physically. And it's kind of like you get rusty. But you can open that back up over time. Whether you do a stretch routine, you see a massage therapist, you work on that. I've seen 90-year-olds that have the greatest posture I've ever seen in my life, and they've got muscle on them. You know how healthy they are? And that's a choice. I've seen a picture of an 88-year-old woman who was a bodybuilder and another 88-year-old woman who had a lot of health issues. And of course, there's genetic stuff in play and there's lifestyle stuff, but to a large degree, every day, those women have different commitments. And so you get clear for yourself. What matters to me? Not other people. What's important to me? And then you do that. Sunlight plus fresh air, two of your best friends. Quick little useful tip, prayer, meditation, something that allows you to hone in. But if you were to if you were to breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds, and for the second time, I won't do it now, but you breathe in for 4 seconds and you hold it for a second, and then you exhale for 6, all through your nose. When the exhale is longer than the inhale, that's why it's 4 in, 6 out, it causes the nervous system to calm down and to relax. And so you breathe that way for 5 minutes, let's say, 10 minutes. If your stress levels are at a 10, they'll drop to a 4 or a 3 or a 2. And you want to take it to the next level, maybe you put some music on. If 4 to 6 feels really easy, maybe you breathe in for 6 and you breathe out for 8. You can work your way up to it. But just that simple breath pattern can knock out stress. So your day-to-day, you're at work, you're doing whatever you're doing, you're feeling stressed out, pause, give yourself 1 minute. You can probably get 5 or 8 breaths doing that. That'll really help. Have fun. How many people remember fun? Sometimes we get so busy, we think, well, I'm working, I'm a professional, I don't have time for fun. You don't not have time for fun. All the research shows that fun, play, it helps you perform at the highest level. Fun and play brings the best out of you, whether it be with your partner, whether it be at work, whether it be in whatever area. Have fun. Schedule some fun into your life. It will make you more productive at what you do. Love and honor your relationships. And if you have a spiritual practice, whatever that is, deepen it. And so as we wrap here, a couple ways that I can continue to support. If you like, content, I've got probably 400 to 500 videos that are all mostly short, like a minute to 5 minutes, probably in general. Videos, podcasts, different things. You can take a picture of this, and I'll put a link in the chat in a minute. But there's a lot of content on there. If you like content, you can check all that out, and it can serve you. I've been blessed that a lot of people have told me that those videos have made a big difference for their life, and hopefully it does the same for you. If you'd like a copy of my book, you can get a free copy of that as an ebook on my website, which the link is there as well. The audiobook's a couple bucks, but the book itself, it's simple, it's practical. I made it like 70 pages-ish because I wanted to make it where this will help you go from stuck to momentum. And there's no excuse because it's not 400 pages. And the last part, when it comes to reading, watching, it's all really useful. And sometimes you want that more individualized support. And so again, if you'd like to have a conversation, I'd love to speak to you. We can figure out what's going on in your life, what you want. We can figure out what seems to be getting in the way. And then we can come up with a plan to move forward. If you want to do that with me and it feels like a good fit, awesome. And if not, we at least have a really great conversation and you have some clarity around where you're going forward. And so I will share that link in a moment. And as I close here, with every decision you recreate yourself. You can have virtually anything that you want, but you have to actually want it. And your word has to be backed by action. And when you commit to that, there's no telling how different your life can be a day, a week, a month, a year, a decade from now. And so get clear, what's the price of living my new life? Giving up your old one. Figure out what it is you want, get any help that you might need along the way, and take massive action, consistent action, course correct. I did that, it didn't work out, you figure out a better way to do it. And I want to be the first to welcome you to this next chapter of your life, because I firmly believe that none of you are the same human beings you were when we started today. If there's any part of you that realizes there's aspects of who I was an hour ago that I don't want to keep being going forward. There's actions I've been taking that I don't want to keep taking anymore. It's time to act on that. It's time to shift. And I want to welcome you to the next chapter of your life. It starts now. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jamil. That was really, really powerful. And I'm pretty sure everybody have enjoyed it.
Thank you, Vinky. I just put in the chat the link if anyone wants to copy that. You'll find the book there. You'll find connecting with me there. You'll find all the links to my videos there. Anything that you'd like to see, it's all in that link if that resonates with you all.